he's the first criminally convicted president, right? Like, I know it's good to have like, boundary breaking leaders, but I'm not sure in that direction was the way we wanted to go. There's so many charges brought against him. I mean,
I'm going to put in a little addition to your agenda, both of you, because this story has been increasingly gaining traction during the evening. It now occupies top spot on thetimes.com. And this concerns Joe Biden. He did an excerpt of a television interview that he has done, has been released. And President Biden has indicated he would be prepared to reconsider his run for the White House if he was medically unfit to serve. This is as Adam Schiff, a very senior congressman likely to win a Senate seat in California in November, said he had serious concerns about Biden's ability to beat Donald Trump and said he should step aside. Let's hear first of all from Joe Biden and the only intervention that would see him reconsider his run for the White House. I mean, how much wiser can you get at the age of 80 odd from 70 odd? And he's absolutely right to point out that when he was voted in as president, it was meant to be a transitional leadership. Yet I don't think it's that America is more divided, and that's why he's chosen that it's not a transitional leadership. I just think it is a complete failure of the Democrat Party to come up with a viable alternative. Albie, what do you make of this?
I think you're bang on the money there, Kate. I don't think this has anything to do with the fact that things are more divided now in America than they've ever been before. I feel like people have been saying the same thing since 2016 every year. I don't feel that America is more divided.
He stood on a ticket of unity in his first address to the nation. He talked about unity. That was all he was banging on about.
But the unity hasn't. He's not achieved that unity yet, and I think it was perhaps a little bit naive of him to think that he was going to be the man to achieve that unity. And it is a total failure of the Democrat Party and of Biden not to be grooming the next generation of Democratic leaders who can take the fight to the Republicans, who, let's face it, are on the ascendancy at the election in America later on this year.
Yeah, we should point out that that January the 6th had happened by the time that Joe Biden had his inauguration on January the 20th, 2021. Described as the day we nearly lost America. Coco, come in on this. We've now got Adam Schiff calling for Joe Biden to step aside. There's two big polls today. 65% of Democrats say he should step aside. And what's even more notable is that in battleground states, alternatives to Joe Biden are polling at an average of 3 points higher than the president himself. And none of this is going in the right direction.
No, none of it is. And look, I don't claim to sit here and say I'm an expert on American politics, but I don't think that I'm surprised. Oh, sorry, actually, let me rephrase that. I don't think I'm alone in being surprised at how severe the cognitive decline seemed and how sudden it came along. It was Joe Biden who was the one who was egging on to have these debates, right? So there was a sense that it would be fine, it would be good. And then only in the cold light of day did we really see, oh God, this is quite serious. So I think a lot of people have been caught unawares about what's going on. I think it's good that he's talking about, if he does have a serious medical condition, that he will step aside. I think that's good. I think that's right and that's responsible. And particularly when we have to remember who he's up against, Donald Trump, who, I think is a charlatan. I think responsible leadership is what's required, and stepping aside may well be part of that. I do think I understand also why he's saying it will only be if there's medical evidence that he needs to, because of course it would look like a dereliction, and that would prove to be a massive problem for the Democrats. I mean, fundamentally, the Democrats have enormous problems at the moment, right? And as we've all agreed here, there's not really any viable candidates. Kamala Harris is not really very much liked. A lot of them don't have name recognition. I mean, the only one that springs to mind is maybe Gavin Newsom because of his rivalry against Ron DeSantis. But I mean, the rest of them, we don't really know. And the election's coming up
And there's
soon.
a funding issue as well. If you choose anyone apart from Kamala Harris, there is a funding issue. Why do you say Trump is a charlatan? We were having a big discussion last night on the show, Coco. The reason why I mention this is because, here is a man that served a term as president that is at the moment, the favourite to secure a second term as US president. Yet you call him a charlatan. Explain yourself.
Well, I mean, he's the first criminally convicted president, right? Like, I know it's good to have, like, you know, boundary breaking leaders, but I'm not sure in that direction was the way we wanted to go. You know, there's so many charges brought against him. I mean, I like, you know, I'm conscious that anything I say may sound partisan, but I'm sure there's even Republicans who would agree that Trump's presidency brought the office of the president into disrepute. So, you know, I don't want to see him back again. And I worry that if he has another mandate, how much further he can go in bringing this office into disrepute and ultimately making the American people lose total confidence in government at all.
We've been hearing, of course, a lot about plans that the Republican Party wants to execute. We've had Donald Trump's running mate pick, J.D. Vance, who has had a complete about turn in his opinion on Donald Trump. J.D. Vance speaking this evening. Donald Trump will make his speech tomorrow. We've heard that he's completely scrapped his draft one, which was sort of more of a kind of a we will take the fight to them rallying cry, and now is a call for unity instead. Albie, what do you make of what you hear from the United States? You're a conservative commentator. Arguably, there is more that you're aligned with from the Republican side of the US than not. But where do you sit on this?
I'm a lot more excited about J.D. Vance than I am about Donald Trump. And I imagine what's happened with J.D. Vance. I mean, he was previously very critical of Donald Trump. He wrote an amazing book back around the time that Trump was elected called The Hillbilly Elegy. I think there was also a film or a television series that was made out of it. Really, really interesting guy. Interesting background. I think he served in the army, grew up in real deprivation. Then I think he went to one of the top universities in America, either worked at a top bank or a law firm or something like that. So he's a sort of
he went to Yale.
Good. And so I think he's a really interesting candidate. And I think he probably wants to be president one day. And I imagine what he's seen after seeing what's happened to Nikki Haley is that he's seen that unless you back Trump in the Republican Party in 2024, you're not going to get anywhere at all. And Trump can only be in power for one more term. And I imagine he's thinking, well, if I can be a successful vice president, maybe a moderating force on Donald Trump, because I mean, look, historically, he has been a lot more moderate than Donald Trump is, although he does have some interesting views on Ukraine. I think J.D. Vance is a really interesting younger candidate, maybe for president in the future. And I think the next Trump term, I think he might pleasantly surprise us.
I mean, Vance is more radical than Donald Trump.
In what sense?
I think a lot of people would argue, says that the current government is corrupt. He doesn't believe in any intervention at all in wars not on American soil. He has opinions on abortion too. I mean, a lot of people are citing J.D. Vance as someone who appeals to the more extreme part of the Republican Party, of Republican supporters, and that he offers the extremism that when Donald Trump gets into power will not execute because he has to appeal to more moderates. So J.D. Vance, in other words, makes Trump look moderate. Such are J.D. Vance's. And I know about his background, but he has completely changed his opinion on many things, particularly on Donald Trump. So that the theory is he's there to make Donald Trump look less radical. Albie.
I just feel that perhaps he's playing the game in order to get into the position that he wants to be in 4 years' time in order to make a bid for president. I don't think. I mean, earlier on this year, he was saying that he thought Donald Trump was awful. He's now saying that Donald Trump is great. I don't really believe what he is saying, to be quite honest. And I imagine.
And so why is he so interesting if you're basically calling him a liar?
Knowing the position. Well, look, I think he's just being a politically savvy operator. Knowing the positions that he's taken in the past, I find it really difficult to believe that he is this far right, white nationalist, great replacement theory conspiracy theorist when he has an Indian wife and he has mixed race children that all have Indian names. Like, it just doesn't add up. I feel that what he's trying to do is he's trying to win over a more radical Republican base, which has become more radicalized since Trump has been in power. He's seen what's happened to all of the moderates like Nikki Haley, who isn't really moderate in Republican standards, but is moderate compared to Donald Trump. And he sees that the only way that he can actually win over this base is to be a radical like Trump. And I just hope
Trump.
He's going to be more moderate in office than he is during this weird period since the beginning of this year until now, where it seems that he's changed his political positions on everything.
Okay.
I don't think they've changed their stripes that quick.